Welcome to the Smart Connector podcast. It's Thursday evening. We're on the Smart Connector group. We're going to be talking about a really important subject tonight with expert Keith on this particular topic, which is entrepreneurial burnout. So welcome, Keith Corbett.
Thank you, Jane. Very happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
So, Keith, burnout, very, very common, isn't it, amongst entrepreneurs?
It's a lot more common than people might think. There was a recent Harvard university study which said that at least 25% of entrepreneurs experience at least mild burnout at some point in their careers. So it may well be more than that. That's 25% who admitted it.
Yeah, so let's get into this whole topic of burnout, because is burnout something that is a very personal thing, or are there certain symptoms and signs that you are, if you like, entering burnout or experiencing it?
I think that obviously the symptoms of it, you can see the exhaustion, severe stress, anxiety, panic attacks, and it has also detrimental impacts on the home life. It comes from having anxiety, self-doubt, fear of failure. These sort of things can drive a person to be giving more than they've got and becoming overwhelmed. And then you obviously have the particularly self-employed people who feel personally responsible for everything. They're doing all the busy non-revenue generating work and also have difficulty delegating. They think that no one else can do it better, which may be so, but it does lead to exhaustion and stress. So I think the overwork and this need to succeed or fear of failure is a real big driver, but there can be other sources as well. So for example, this week, only 2 days ago, I was talking to somebody who had it coming from both ends. Their daughter had moved away to take up a career opportunity and was in absolute despair about it, and it was a time when we were locked down and she couldn't visit, and the daughter was phoning 2 or 3 times a day in severe distress. And there is a saying that you can only be as happy as your unhappiest child if you're a parent. And at the same time, things weren't going well with her business. She had a business partner and was getting very overworked and stressed around that, and the two of them combined, and eventually she just wiped out. And the thing is this: there's an old saying that the graveyard is full of indispensable executives. So
Right.
it doesn't really serve us to be killing ourselves in that way. But often people can't see a way out, that they feel sort of trapped on this ever speeding up treadmill of life, and they get into these ever decreasing circles until you just can't go anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good way of describing it, that treadmill, because I think a lot of early stage entrepreneurs really feel that, because in order to get a business up and running, you do have to put in the hours and you do have to do the work yourself right from the beginning, unless you're one of those fortunate people that perhaps leaves corporate with a contract, or you have the skills and the experience to literally just hit the ground running. And for many people, it's just not like that, is it?
No, I think you're right, and a lot of people find themselves in the situation where they decide to go self-employed, often to escape what they dislike about the corporate world or having a job, just over broke, and they want a better lifestyle, and they end up having exactly the opposite in the end, having more hours for less money quite often. It's certainly for a period of time, and there's this within 5 years, at least half of new startups go bust. It's really kind of a sorry thing to see, but one of the reasons is they just don't have the capacity to handle everything themselves, nor see a way to get the resources to help them out. And once you're locked in that, you're very sort of blinkered. You don't really see. You have this sort of focused vision on just doing tasks without putting your head up and saying, okay, how can I find a better way to do this? Who can help me? Who do I know who can give me some pointers on it? There's a lot of help out there if people want to look for it, but when you're overwhelmed, it's difficult to get your head above the parapets.
Yeah, and I think what tends to happen is that in those early days, I think people are quite hamstrung, because I actually learned a sobering statistic the other day that on average, many new businesses are not in profit for the first 2 years. Now that is, I mean, that's significant, isn't it? So if they are investing, and of course you do have to invest, you have to invest in yourself, you have to invest in resources. Somehow you have to get the money from somewhere to start a business, because it's quite hard to do it on a shoestring. It will take you longer and it will be harder. So people, they get the money, they get started, they put the money in, and then they expect the results to come. And inevitably, it can take longer, can't it? And it can be harder than they imagined in the beginning. And isn't it that time when the burnout starts to creep in?
Yeah, you get like you see it. You're not making the money, and you're coming to the end of your grant period or wherever you got the investment from. You might be having to
The
pay
savings, maybe.
it back, yes, and the resources running out. So what do? You work harder, you try harder to get more in, and this actually puts you in an even worse place. It is quite, I think, fairly common scenario for a lot of people trying to get themselves off the ground, and even established companies. You've got I find it particularly with solopreneurs, even if you've been going a while and then you lose a contract or something happens personally and you have to take your eye off the ball, and suddenly, where's my income going? And so you get back onto this sort of desperation cycle.
Yeah, and now, of course, it's not the same for everybody, and I know, obviously, you and I, Keith, we've known each other for a long time, and some people, they've managed to get themselves in a position where the financial pressure is off a bit, which, of course, is very helpful. So it's always a good goal, isn't it, for an entrepreneur to think about, okay, how can I actually get my expenses covered while I actually grow my business? And sometimes if there's money from other sources, for example, rental properties or some investments or whatever, that's fantastic. But a lot of business owners aren't in that situation. So we are going to get on to talking about, okay, what can you do if you are in that situation where you started a business, you started it with all this enthusiasm and passion and excitement, and you put the money in, and you're now at that point where you're in that dip. I think there's a book called The Dip. That's what I heard. That's actually talks about this specific time when you really are implementing you're on the other side of the new kind of passion and excitement and enthusiasm, and you're grinding away and making it happen, and it's not happening fast enough. And how do you actually manage that?
That's a really good question. I mean, the one of the things to do is look at the 80-20 rule. So there's a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by a chap called Ferris. Work smarter, not harder. Focus on the things that count. Just this sort of you'll find that 20% of the activities contribute towards 80% of the revenues. There's the whole outsourcing thing. Even right from the start, when you say, okay, maybe you've got no money, not everybody's got money to start up with, but to find a way to, even if it's with a credit card, to get the automation, the lead generation, rather than having to do everything manually and long-windedly yourself, will give you a lot more freedom to focus on the things that really bring the money in. And I think the key thing is to bear in mind, I mean, it's all right to say I've got to work, but really do. Do you know the book The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey? The one
Uh,
I like the best is Sharpen the Saw, and because a blunt saw can't cut the wood, you really have to be able to take that break so that you can replenish and refresh. It's counterproductive to keep going without recharging the battery. It'll always be flat unless you put more juice into it. And you can release the pressure. Constructive leisure activities, have non-work interests, time for family and relationships. In fact, you're the smart connector. You understand the value of this. There's a decades-long Harvard study which talks about the connectedness and community is much more of a contribution towards happiness in the long term than any amount of money at all. And meditation is good. I don't know, don't take this as a plug, but I do have a thing on my website called Instant Stress Relief, and it's a 5-minute audio, which when you're frazzled, you can just take 5 minutes to let it go. I call it the calm routine. It's very effective. It's not a cure, but it's temporarily lets the pressure out, so you can carry on with what you're doing. And that's a sort of practical things. The way I look at things like burnout and anything that is causing us to be dissatisfied with how things are in our life, I take a more holistic view of things. You have like what we call the 4 bodies: a physical, mental, emotional, and your energetic body. And an imbalance in one is going to have a knock-on effect on the others. So, the stress and the burning out is going to have a physical toll on the body. Fatigue, aches, migraines, potentially, maybe gut or thyroid issues are quite common. Mentally, you've got the stress, the firefighting, and all that sort of reactionary stuff. Can't see a way out, trapped, and then there's the emotional, being anxious on a sliding scale from frustration down to despair, and people going into alcoholism. And a lot of that, I think, is looking at it from, let's say, the energetic or spiritual connection, is being out of alignment with your core being by compromising your values and your purpose. And purpose is more about who you're being rather than what you're doing, and having a weak energy field. And it can be driven by things like self-limiting beliefs around your self-worth or money. Money doesn't grow on trees, and filthy rich. And if you've got these unconscious beliefs, meaning that we don't even know we have them, that can be a problem, because your unconscious will generate that reality for you. So I know not everybody is going to resonate with this kind of perspective, but what I find in my practice, it does pay to have a much more holistic view of things. You can also find that the root cause, if you've got a financial issue, the root cause could be somewhere in another area of life, like a relationship issue. And if you can heal one, the other one takes care of itself, is because everything is connected. And this is what I found out from years. I mean, I'm just an ordinary guy, nothing particularly special about me, but I had some extraordinary experiences which set me on this path of discovery and self-discovery, and helped me to make massive positive change in my life. And others do the same as well. And what I do is I blend the scientific, metaphysical, and spiritual teachings, so that it just really dumping all the baggage, getting aligned, accessing hidden inner resources. We're all much more powerful than we know, and we've given up our power by falling into these patterns of despair and generating these very, very unpleasant situations for ourselves. We can blame external people and situations all we want, but in the end, inevitably, it's all generated from within. And that's the way I look at it, and that's the way I get results. course, there's practical 3D things that I've already talked about, but you've got, when you're more holistic about it, there's a much more chance of getting where you actually want to be.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because I totally agree with you that everything is connected. And if you're unhappy in your working life, if you feel stressed, and if you feel as though you're rushing around trying to get everything done, but really achieving nothing, then it is going to impact your feelings about yourself. It's not just going to be, okay, I put work away and now I go and live my amazing life. No, you know, you're going to be struggling with your relationships. You're going to be struggling with your feelings about yourself. And I think for me anyway, the important thing as an entrepreneur is to detach from your results, because what I find is that you have a good day and a bad day, a good day and a bad day. Some people have a good month and a bad month. And although we would all like to have consistent and predictable revenue in the early days coming in, we don't want anybody saying no to us. We want everybody saying yes. And just to go like that with our business, the truth of the matter is that it's like that. And if we pin our self-esteem and our happiness and our well-being to our business, then we too are going to be up and down like that. So do you find when you're working with your clients, Keith, that is a common theme, and that's something that they struggle with?
So I actually think you're absolutely right. It's never all milk and honey 100% of the time, not for any of us, because we are human, and we will have challenges. That's what we're here for, to grow, and you can only grow by overcoming challenges. But I also find that even when things are going well, you can have the same problem. So I had a client last year, just around the end of the first lockdown. It was August timeframe, and he'd he'd got a redundancy package, so he'd got the money, bought a franchise, and for about 3 years really threw himself into it, did fantastically well, was one of the top performers and in the country, or it might have been the world, I can't remember now, and was doing phenomenally well. And also he got residual earnings. So he got money by getting new clients on board, but also there was residuals because of the service
Yeah,
that the franchise offered.
yeah.
And suddenly his efforts slipped, and he just found himself doing less time on the business. He'd lost his mojo, basically lost his motivation, and had no energy anymore for the actual business that he put his heart and soul into for the last 3 years. And that had a knock-on effect. He started gaining weight, he stopped exercising, and he started eating poorly, and went from the best performer to just ticking over. And he wanted to double his revenues. He really had this goal of doing it, but he just lacked the motivation. And he'd thrown so much into the first 3 years, he'd got nothing left to give. And when we got down to it, the root cause was in fact a fear of failure. And this comes up so common, and it does lead to a lot of procrastination, because if you don't try, you can't fail. And so once we got that sorted, he was back on it, and he'd got this goal. He wanted to have 4 clients by the end of the year. So by the time we finished the program, I think we did about 6 weeks with him, and so we're running through to the end of September, and he actually got 3 by the end of the year, and the 4th one in January. So I'm calling that a result. But he actually had the parachute payment and the resources to get going, and still had the same issue with burning out. So it can happen to anyone if we're not careful about how we go about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Keith. It can happen to anyone at any time. And I know and have known some extremely successful and very, very wealthy people who I definitely know were either on the point of burnout or actually have had nervous breakdowns. They've been so overwhelmed by the demands of their business. In fact, this was I remember my boss, the owner of the business that I eventually sold. he was in that situation whereby he had a very successful business. He always had a successful business. He left the BBC with a golden handshake. So he had a lot of work right from day one. He was able to pay into his pension. He was able to employ designers because he had those contracts. So it was very, very nice right from the start. But he'd pushed himself so hard. And I think just the overwhelm and the responsibility of being a business owner after the relative luxury, I mean, call it, a golden cage, if you like, of being within an organization like the BBC. I think that was always very, very difficult for him. And I think it's as entrepreneurs, it's all on our shoulders, isn't it? And sometimes that can just feel so hard, can't it?
Yes, and I think that Robert Kiyosaki explains it quite well with his book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, when you've got the four quadrants, and on the top left you've got employed, and the bottom left is self-employed, and the top right is business owner, and so bottom right is business owner, and the bottom left is investor. And the idea is to get yourself onto the is this the right side? Onto the right side of the everything's the wrong way around on my screen, but onto the right side, on the right side of the quadrant. And when you're in that S quadrant, self-employed, there are certain characteristics, common characteristics. It's not for everyone, but generally speaking, they do have a lot of the same characteristics. Essentially, they don't really own a business as much as owning a job that comes without paid holidays and without a pension plan and so on. And so if they go away, the job doesn't get done. Whereas with the business owner, the B quadrant of the cash flow quadrant, they've got other people doing most of the work, and they're working on the business rather than in the business. And there's a big difference there. They actually own a business, and the business can function without them for a period of time. And of course, then you've got the investor quadrant, where you're basically making money work for you rather than you work for money. And I'm actually in two quadrants. I'm in this investor quadrant, as you know, as a property investor, and I'm in this quadrant as a therapist. And because of being in this quadrant, life's quite comfortable. I don't do this. I don't have to. I get paid every day, whether I get out of bed or not. So I don't have to do this. I do it because I'm on a mission, and I love doing it. And it just fills me with so much joy to see the transformation in other people. It's more of a calling, a cause. And if I don't do it, I get very dissatisfied, and I think there's no accident in that. But that's getting a bit sort of esoteric about things. That if we deny our purpose, it causes us problems, basically.
Yeah. So I think we ought to really talk about this issue of self-employed versus business owner versus investor, because for me, somebody who's self-employed, they are really exchanging their time for money. I've been self-employed in my life. In fact, I've had all of these roles. When I first started out on my career, I was actually an art director and a designer. I used to get paid by the day. So that was my job. I was self-employed. I had no ambition at that particular time to build anything or to be a business owner. I just wanted to work and to get paid for being in these fun environments, doing fun stuff. So I was there, and then after a while, the instability of that and the regular hours, because it was a bit of a crazy environment at that particular time, just got to me, and I thought, no, actually, I do want to kind of go into corporate life. And so I started working for agencies and actually climbed up the career ladder and did that whole corporate thing. And then obviously I jumped ship and I became MD of a really small agency company, and this was the one that we scaled up and then sold. And then after that, having had that experience really of kind of running a business, I mean really running a business and scaling a business, that gave me the confidence then to kind of go it alone. But what I always struggled with in that transition is actually that thing of not actually wanting to be self-employed. I've never really wanted to be self-employed. I like to build things and I like to build businesses. And right from the word go, with anything that I do, I always try to kind of leverage and outsource and really just focus on the stuff that I do best, because I know that there's a lot of stuff that I do quite badly. And if I went back to being self-employed and just, did one of the things that I do well, let's just say if I just was a coach, and there's nothing wrong with just being a coach, but if that was just all I was doing and I was just focusing on being a coach, then I wouldn't be building something, and I like to build something. But building something, building a business, it's harder than being self-employed. I think being self-employed, you stay in lane, don't you? And as you said, you've got an income stream that enables you to be self-employed and to be, to stay in lane. But that's not enough for some people, is it? Is it all about kind of just finding a balance in your life that works for you?
Well, I think it depends on what you want out of life. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no interest in building a business and being responsible for many other, employees, even if they're virtual, or, contract basis or whatever, and having to manage that. I had a corporate career as you did. I got to director level, both on the agency side and in-house, doing public relations and marketing in the high tech industry, and had departments of people reporting to me and stuff, and it wasn't what I would call my dream job. I liked the strategic elements and looking ahead and where we want to go and how we're going to get there. I quite enjoyed that, but I didn't enjoy being the agony aunt for all of these people. I didn't enjoy all the politics of people jockeying for
No.
position and that. But I did love what I did and had some really, really good. I happened to be quite good at it, which is why I was able to progress. But when the opportunity came to take an early retirement package, and I coupled that with what I built up in company stocks from our stock employee purchase plan and performance awards and such, I was able to turn that into cash flowing property portfolio. And I did all of this studying and research over many years, even before I left the corporate world, into what worked. I mean, just for me, it started with a scream. I just woke up one night, and I'm not going to try and change anyone's worldview here or anything, but I did see the ghost of my dead grandmother standing by my bedside. And whether you think it's real or not, or hallucination or anything, or try to logicify it, the important thing is it set me on a path. For me, it was a signpost that to make change in my life and do something different. And I don't want to believe, I want to know. And I really did a lot of research, reading, workshops, conferences, one-on-ones, and got to discern. I've got really good BS detectors, having spent 30 years in PR and marketing. So, but also found fantastic ways to develop intuition and our own access, our own hidden inner resources to make empowered decisions. And I started experimenting with it and trying it out on myself and other people. And it's amazing how one thing I really, really did learn is how easily we give up our power, how easily we disempower ourselves through our negative emotions and limiting beliefs, and how we give in to these, and how they drive our life, attachments to toxic people or situations. And we all think it's outside of us, but actually it is all coming from within. And you don't have to work very hard to make some tweaks to get very, very different results by dumping that baggage, aligning with your core being, finding out who it is initially, and then once you're in alignment with it, you get more of a life of grace and ease. And honestly, Jane, I only decided a matter of 3 or 4 weeks ago that I'm on a mission to help more people become self-empowered. I'm still going to do one-on-one work, but I want to do one-to-many. I want to run group courses or workshops. I want to do public speaking, and just the synchronicities all popped up, and here I am, just you can count it in days even, having a talk already. And this is how it works when you get in alignment and you are in fact in tune with who you really are in your core being, and you create consciously, and the synchronicities show up all the time. You could even see it in a 3D way. Like, for example, I was looking for a car. I saw a Mazda garage, went in. I would never thought of buying a Mazda, but it ticked all the boxes and was in the budget, so I got it. And I thought, I don't know anyone who's got a Mazda. I'll be the only person I know with a Mazda. And I got home, and there's 3 already in the road, and they've been there ages. I've just never seen them, because you don't know what you're looking for. When you get real clarity and you've got all of the baggage out of the way, you can get very clear on who you are and where you're going. The opportunities abound. They were there anyway, but now you can see them clearly, and that's how it works for me now, and that's how it works for my clients, and how I work with them to use exactly the same processes that I use on myself. It just happens. It's just absolutely amazing. It's normal for me now. Have we lost Jane? Oh, hi guys. It looks like I'm still live, but Jane might not be. So I'll carry on. What else can I say about this? Honestly, I can talk forever. The engaging your intuition can absolutely take you to a brand new place, somewhere that you just don't understand how powerful you are until you get there. By following these practices, which I even, there's a really simple practice you can do to have a much stronger rapport with your unconscious mind. We have our conscious mind, which you're listening to me now with. We have our unconscious mind, where all our personality and our blocks and barriers and beliefs are, and we have our higher mind, which is always nudging us towards greater growth, but it communicates through the unconscious to the conscious. You never have a direct communication from higher to conscious. So this is why we do so much work at the level of the unconscious mind, to remove those blocks, so we get a clear communication. And I'll give a very simple analogy. Let's say I'm with a client. I might see a picture. Hello, could be Jane. Hello.
Keith,
I know. I think I'm live now with everyone, and you're not. Yes. Okay. I'll keep going until you're back. So, folks, Jane's computer's died, and she's trying to get. Sorry, guys. Jane's computer has, and she's trying back with soon as she can. In the meantime, I'll just keep going on. But so I'm with a client, and I might see a picture here of say a glass of water, and I'll think to myself, oh, I wonder if they need to drink more water. Then I'll get the chill. I get a chill which comes down the right side, back of my head, down my arm. I'll get goosebumps, and this is what I call my signaling system. I get the full, if you're any NLPers out there, the full VAK, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and I know 100% for sure that is right for that person. It's infallible, never failed. So I might say to them, oh, do you drink much water? And they might say, oh yeah, you're right. I don't drink enough water. I really should drink more water. I said, yeah, I think you would. I think it would benefit you to do that. And on that subject, diet's important as well. When you're stressed and overwhelmed, weakens your immune system. There's a foot healthcare professional I know, and she says when she's dealing with verrucas, almost inevitably that person has a lot of stress in their life, and that weakens the immune system. And a verruca is a virus, so it allows it to get in, and they keep coming back because they're not dealing with the root cause, which is the stress and despair and the burnout, whatever they have. in their life. And that's why it does pay to have a more holistic view of things. And that's exactly how I work. I'll give you another story. Let me this is a guy worked. The reason I'm just pulling it up on my screen because I want to use his words. They're just so beautiful. I mean, I loved working with him because he saw the value of investing in himself. He could relate to the fact that he had to change to have a better life, and got spectacular results. Because when he came to me, he was a complete mess, powerless, skeptical, and I'm a skeptic at heart. I don't want to believe, I want to know. I really do have to look at what I has to prove it and see it with my own eyes and experience it. But he hated it, he got himself into a very unhappy situation. So I said, let's just have a session. If you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. And he did that, signed up for my one-on-one program immediately. And here's what he said with the email he sent me afterwards. He said, I may as well have had the word victim tattooed on my forehead. I was at rock bottom. After a breakup with my girlfriend, my self-esteem and confidence had dropped dramatically. I had anxiety, overwhelm, and had been falling behind in life. Now I have a new sense of self-belief, enthusiasm, and energy for life again. I've stopped lazing around, binge eating on junk food. Instead, I'm back at the gym, eating healthily, feeling fitter and confident. I've started my own network marketing franchise and networking group with people who want to create joy-filled lives with plenty of freedom. And one of the most important and valuable outcomes was getting clear on what it is I wanted and creating my life's purpose. I'm starting an online project that's all about transformation, bringing balance into people's daily lives, meditation, yoga, personal training, and life coaching. I'm very excited about the opportunity to create this. It's been a very transformative experience, and I just love to express my gratitude and appreciation to you, Keith, that's me, for this amazing program. And I love it when I get a message like that, because that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Sorry, I thought I'd lost you for a minute. You're back. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, because as I said before, I really don't have to get out of bed in the morning. And when we're out of alignment and we're living our life driven by unconscious self-limiting beliefs, like I'm not worthy or I'm not free, and when we've got these attachments which don't serve us, what we'll find is that the unconscious will generate the problems and especially the emotions, the anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. This is the unconscious speaking to us, telling us that there's something we need to be paying attention to about ourselves, particularly if it's inappropriate or unwarranted. So yeah, I mean, we're human beings. We have to have emotions. That's part of our makeup. If you're in a dangerous situation, you should feel some fear to get you out of it. But being in a fight and flight mode constantly through the stress of work is not somewhere where we want to be. So the what we want to do is release those so that we can only have the appropriate and warranted emotional reactions. We can make use our mind, our brain, really, to make decisions and choices, and not just respond to an unwanted, uncomfortable feeling. Okay, Jane is messaging me to keep going, and she'll be back ASAP. ASAP is a relative term I found, especially when you're on a deadline with a reporter and waiting for someone else to give you some information. So back in the day, so and then do you know what your business values are? I find that many people don't. And when I work with a client and tease out what's really important to them, often things come up, work-life balance comes up, flexibility comes up, being able to have time with family and friends comes up. And if you compromise your values, you will get dissatisfaction, even extreme distress and despair. So you may think, oh, I haven't got the time to do that. But conversely, if you do that, you no longer have the problem which is telling you that you need to do that. If that makes sense. I hope it does. And then I've talked a little bit about purpose and life purpose, and I don't think it's all about what you do. I think we can do whatever we want. It's a choice. The planet's a free choice, guys. But the thing is this: if you have a purpose, it's about who you're being. Who are you when you're at your best and doing your best stuff? What accomplishments did you have in your life that gave you the greatest sense of joy? And you look at who you're being at that time. What skills were you demonstrating? What was your connection with other people, places, and things? And this gives you a clue as to who you are in your core being and what your purpose is. And to deny that will cause you problems. If in your working life it's sucking the life out of you, that's a clue. That's a clue that you're not in alignment with your core being. And if it's bringing you joy and fulfillment, that's a clue. That's a clue that you're on the right track. And I'm happy to say I've found my track and I'm loving it. But we don't come with a manual. We don't come, this is your track, you should get into it. It's a journey of discovery and self-discovery. And I'm really fortunate that Granny Annis showed up and pointed me on this path, because back then I was every bit the young executive, and I know exactly. Maybe you don't want to change. You don't think there's any reason to change. Maybe you think that there's a stigma around holistic stuff, and you're living by other people's expectations. And there's no wonder there's so much mental wellness issues in the world today, that we're living by other people's expectations of us. We're not being authentically true to who we really are in our core being, and that will cause problems. It's holistic, everything's connected at the quantum level. It's vibrational, and you are a vibrational match for things that you attract into your life. You're a little generator going around and pulling into you, sending out the very waveform that's going to make your life what it is. So if you want a different real world experience, you have to change on the inside, particularly at the level of the unconscious mind. And that's where we spend an awful lot of our time, energy, and effort. I wish you guys could ask me questions, because I'd love to get into a Q&A and give you some more information. How about another story? I mean, talking about beliefs, this is where just changing somebody's belief, or I didn't change it, they changed their own belief, made such a difference in their life by doing almost nothing else. So her name's Deborah, and she's from Seattle. And Deborah had got this fantastic property portfolio, and she was in Florida, holiday homes, rental units, and she was living the dream, a real surf girl lifestyle, had got all the trappings. And then we had the credit crunch and the financial crisis, 2007 and 08, and everything plummeted. Bank called in the loans, everything got repossessed, and she was getting turfed out of her own house, and she was homeless. She got no money, nowhere to live. She was looking at trying to buy an old banger with broken jewelry, pawning gold, bits of gold in to try and buy an old banger so she could drive back to Seattle to go and live with relatives, because her car had been taken away. And it was a terrible, terrible situation. But she got herself there, and actually, I think, borrowed the money to get on a program with one of these big gurus who do the coaching gurus. I don't know who it was. It might have been Christian Mickelson or someone like that. And they had to make $100K in dollars in 12 months, and she actually was doing okay, but she wasn't getting close to that 100K. And so when I started working with her, we uncovered the very common unconscious self-limiting belief of I am not worthy. And it's amazing how many of us have that. I mean, I had it, I got rid of it, it's working wonders for me now. And she just her goal was to be on the stage at the end of the program, with 6 people would be on the stage as case studies, as successful case studies. Jane says she's still struggling. Well, I'll keep going. Let me just message her back. I'll tell her I'm having fun. Take your time. She's trying to get back in. We don't know what the problem is, but we're working on it. Well, I'm not, but they are, obviously. So anyway, what we did was we changed that belief, did a lot of other work, and then we put a goal in her future. And this is one of the things, you've got rid of all the baggage, you've got your alignment, and you've got your clarity, and you know where you're going. You want to consciously create your own future. And you might argue that that's not possible, but I've got so many real world examples. And the thing was, she didn't make the 100K, although she did tremendously well. I mean, that the clients just kept rolling in once she got rid of this not worthy block. But she didn't quite make the 100K, but she was going to the event anyway. So she was disappointed that we put this goal in her future and it wasn't going to happen. But when she got there, they found that one of the people who was going to be on that stage had to cancel at short notice. And so they were looking for a substitute, and she'd got close enough, and so they decided she could be on the stage. So she had that experience, and she was on the stage even though she didn't make the goal which had been set by the organizers. But up until the last minute, when she realized she hadn't reached her goal, she believed she was going to be on the stage, and so it was a surprise to her when she didn't make the 100K, but she got on. But then she got on the stage anyway, and it is just absolutely incredible how that happens. I've got so many examples of that. I could go on all night. I don't know whether Jane will let me do a shameless plug here. You know, guys, one of the things I'm doing is, I said earlier, I've done a lot of one-to-one work, and I'm still going to do that. But what I really like to do is one-to-many, try and help many more people in the world become self-empowered. And I think in the area of business, with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners, we have the opportunity to do that because we're not constrained by some corporate doctrine or dogma. We can run our businesses any way we want. We can have compassionate, soul-centered, heartfelt businesses that make a real difference in people's lives and really bring more light into the world. And so to that end, I've taken my one-on-one program and adapted it for a group program, but it's not ready yet. I'll have it ready for October, so a few weeks yet. But I'm looking for people to pilot it at a very, very heavily discounted rate, and in the return for giving me feedback and potentially being an endorser of it as well. So if that's of interest, do connect with me. But LinkedIn's the best way. I'm on LinkedIn. Just connect and message, or go to my website, woodlandwellness.co.uk, and message me from there. Or, on woodlandwellness.co.uk, you can get the instant stress relief as well. Get that 5-minute audio. It's right there on the homepage. You can get that 5-minute audio and use that to release the frazzle and the tension anytime. Do it first thing in the morning to set you up for a nice calm day. Coming in the evening, if you're assuming you work days, I don't know, then frazzled, just release that. Just takes 5 minutes. You can do it in the middle of the day. If you've got all that mind chatter going on and you can't sleep at night, do it at night. You might find that you fall asleep during it. And once you've done it a couple of times on your own, you'll find that you don't need the audio anymore because you already know how to do it. That program I was telling you about, I'll tell you how it goes. Let me pull it up for you. So Where are we? Yeah, so basically, it's 6 modules. I might do a bonus or I might not, but the first thing is to understand how to get an empowering mindset. So we look at the 3 minds I've talked about and the 4 bodies I've talked about. Perception is projection, cause and effect, responsibility or excuses. And in the first session, I also give you that technique to build the rapport between the conscious and the unconscious. So you can already start to access those inner resources and intuition, and if you like, boost your psychic powers in a similar way to what I do. Get your own signaling system. And then we eliminate the detrimental lifestyle factors. We look at the negative emotions, the limiting beliefs, stress, anxiety, phobias, poor lifestyle choices, and I've mentioned diet and exercise and stuff already. And then embrace the life affirming factors, like the empowering mindset, empowering beliefs, appropriate emotional responses, energy work, positive lifestyle choices, socializing, caring, getting in nature, things like that. Deepak Chopra talks a lot about that if ever you read his books on the spirituality of success. And engaging your intuition, that's going to boost your creativity, problem solving, empowered decision making, accessing your true power, and getting inspiration, and how to notice the messages and act on them appropriately, because the more you act on it, the more you get, and life just gets that much easier and preferable, more enjoyable. And then evaluating your life, discovering that purpose, what achievements gave you the greatest sense of joy, who were you being, and the values and the essence of your core being talked about. You create a purpose statement of who you are in your core being that gives you a strong emotional charge when you read it, and helps you attract more of what you want in your life. Because when you're feeling good about yourself, hey presto, you get more things to feel good about. And then establishing your future, getting the clarity, who you really are, what you really want, and how to get it. Alignment at all levels of being, and of your neurology as well, aligning your neurological levels, creating new neural pathways for better, more self-empowered you. Accessing those inner resources and putting that goal in your future. We do all of that. I'm looking at doing a Zoom meeting, producing a workbook for each session. There will be tasking to do in between, but it won't be an awful lot. I'm talking about 5 minutes. And also, everyone will get a one-on-one with me to release any specific blocks, like a whopping unconscious limiting belief. That's one of my great skills, is identifying your blocks and blowing them out. A phobia, I can do a phobia in minutes, to be honest. For example, and releasing those negative emotions we talked about. And these are the exact same processes I used to help the guy with the franchise and Deborah from Seattle and many others around the world. And literally from Singapore to Seattle, my client base has been, and I'm talking the long way around, not across the water. So if it's of interest, then you'll be fully self-empowered to live your life purposefully and joyfully with clarity and motivation to make massive positive change. Looking at charging £1,000 a head for it, and I think it's life-changing and worth many times more than that. But for smart connectors, I'm going to do it half price, £500. I don't want to. I'm not one of these hard sell guys. I'm not saying, oh, buy now and the price changes, or there's only going to be 5 places and the price goes up. No, I want to keep it down to maybe 6 or 10 at the most. If I get a lot more interest, I'll run it multiple times. But anyone who's a smart connector, just let me know and say you're a smart connector, and you'll get the 50% off. It's going to be ready in October. Contact me by LinkedIn or the website. I don't even have the landing page or anything up for it yet. Or, I've got the one-on-one program where we go through it more in depth and get a bespoke program for you. I'm still going to do one-on-ones. I enjoy that so much, and it's more bespoke to your personal issues. And I'd invite you to have a conversation about it if that's what you want, or not. It's okay. I know it's going to fly because I've done the internal work. I've done the checks. I've checked with the marketplace as well. Done 3D, done the more esoteric stuff as well. Just have a call and we can talk about it. Not there's no problem. So when I started this journey, I got this promotion and we moved to Colorado, and it's a fabulous place to live and bring up kids and all that sort of stuff. But the job pretty much owned me for a while. And I was very much the young executive. We got this house, view of the mountains and grounds, and it was September. The aspen were turning yellow. We had a cottonwood tree also there in the backyard, and it was a lovely still day. That the kids were playing on the grass, and I just sort of thought, wow, is this it? I've ticked all the boxes already of everything, and I'm still only halfway through working life. Is that it? Is there anything else? And then there was just this little breath of wind on my face, which at the time I thought nothing of. But I look back now, and I think it was significant, because that night, just lying there in bed in the middle of the night, I sort of became slightly aware of something in the room. It was like, this huge guttural scream, that expression, jump out of your skin. Well, I know what that's like. And so does my poor wife, who was lying next to me. She jumped out of her skin, and my grandmother showed up 3 times in all. And I just had this whole sequence of extremely strange and weird, extraordinary experiences. Like just an ordinary guy. I like beer and curry and rugby and stuff like that. And I'd got a rugby injury I'd carried for 20 years in my knee. And this old guy just sort of put his hands around it, and it was all this heat and tingling, and it was gone like new, and it still is. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, well, you can do it too. And I needed to. I had to know how it works. And I studied. I mean, I did a lot of scientifically validated certifications like NLP and hypnotherapy, and a lot more esoteric stuff like energy work, like that was, and shamanic initiations. It's my combination of a thing called timeline therapy with a shamanic energetic release, that I can release these blocks very, very quickly and powerfully. And I integrate this science, metaphysics, and spirituality, but everything is validated by myself. I need the proof. And I know it could be perceived as a bit woo-woo, some of it, but it's definitely not. If you've got a lack of acceptance of this thing, understand that it can unlock the door to opportunity and growth, and we're always being nudged towards greater growth. Nothing in nature stands still. It's either waxing or waning, growing or shrinking, expanding or contracting, and that goes for us. We have to grow ourselves if we want to have a better life and a happier life. And being burnt out and killing ourselves is not going to get us there. We have to understand that there's a better way of doing things. And there's so much anxiety, depression, physical and emotional pain, stress, that taking on other people's expectations of us, that causes these problems. And if you were to go on this journey with me, I promise fulfillment, all these things, health, wealth, happiness, betterment as a person, as a human being, are all possible. And that's where I was years ago. I thought, oh, there's all stigma around it. Is it actually real, or is it just hocus pocus? I've learned so many things. I don't use half of them because I found better ways of doing it. And you might think there's no need to change, but as I say, unless we grow, we'll have problems. The challenges will be presented, and it's better to define your own challenges and your own growth path than have it defined for you by external factors. Let me just check in on Jane. Okay, well, I'm telling you, I'm still going, and I want to know, how do we end? Because I don't want to keep you guys all night long. Okay. Is there anything else I can tell you, lovely people? Only that there's more to the world than meets the eye. And if you're really comfortable in your lifestyle, joyful and fulfilled, fantastic. I applaud that, and long may it last. But if deep inside you know there's more and you're willing to seek it, that's where I'd love to come and support you. And I could go on, I really could, but I think I'm going to have to let you all go. I want to say thank you so much for attending the Smart Connector podcast and listening to me waffle on with all my diatribe. I'm the guest. I've hijacked Jane's event. I have to say, there's no accidents. There aren't any accidents. This is the way it was meant to be. So hopefully, I've helped somebody tonight. And if it's just one person, then that's fine by me, and I've enjoyed doing it, and so that's a good use of my time too. So I think I'm just going to close the browser, and I think the event might end or not, but I'm going to sign out now and say thanks again for listening. Please do connect with me, LinkedIn or woodlandwellness.co.uk. Love to connect with you and even have a chat, or let you know how to engage if you want to, or not. I don't do any selling. It's there. Take it or leave it. Will change your life if you do take it, but that's entirely up to you. Okay, so thank you and good night. I just thought it's gone on for an hour. That's probably more than most people can stomach me waffling on. So I'll just close down. But
God, the joys of kind of live streaming, Keith.
yeah, I'll just close the browser, and you said I'm coming back in. I thought, oh no.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, I was watching you all this time, so I've got your whole pitch and your special offer for the members of the group, which is great. So guys, I just say what Keith is offering is absolutely amazing. I've worked with Keith. He's got, amazing powers, and you will absolutely love it. Thank you, Jem. Jem says, well done, both of you. So look, we're not through, Thank you, Dan, by the way. Thank you so much, Dan, and my special magic guy who's got me back in here because my computer just crashed and all sorts of weird things happened at this end, which had taken me all this time to get back in. But the thing is, there are still lots of questions that I want to ask you. So
I didn't know if there was a way to take questions. Obviously, you've got the questions there. I'd love to take
I've
questions.
got the questions. Yeah, I know. So look, probably what's going to happen is some people will go and then maybe some others will turn up. But I do have a few questions that I'd like to ask you. So I was just gearing up to them. And then obviously we went. So Dan's got an edit on his hands to do after this. But we should definitely finish up and have some Q&A time, I think. Don't you think?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So So Keith, let's get back into it, because I was just getting to this point of, we were talking about entrepreneurial burnout, and it's
Yes.
such an important topic. And I was just I just have so many questions. So, entrepreneurial burnout. So, what is the main cause of entrepreneurial burnout? If you had to choose one, what is the main cause?
I would say it is a fear of failure.
Okay.
There are many, but that one comes up a lot.
Right. So, a fear of failure. We're hardwired for fear in a way, aren't we? Because that's our croc brains at work, isn't it? So,
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's also related to being judged, because we have a natural inborn need for community. We don't want to be expelled from the community, so it's natural to want people to like us, because that's a basic survival thing. But if we think that if we fail, people are not going to think so highly of us, they're going to look differently at us. It can be a driver of a fear of failure, but that fear is quite easily released, and then you can carry on with your business in a proper way, rather than a more sort of inappropriate driver.
I mean, look, you know, fear is also, in a way, it has a positive side, doesn't it? Because, we do have to be conscious of threats, don't we?
Yes, obviously, we've got our ego, which keeps us safe. Like, from primeval times, there's a saber-toothed tiger. If you just say, "Oh, I wonder what it would be like to experience being a saber-toothed tiger's breakfast," that wouldn't be very good for the survival of the species. So if you're like, "Oh my goodness, I've either got to find a way to kill this thing or get away from it," and you've got that fight or flight
Yeah.
that we talked about, that's a natural fear. If you've got like there's like fear of heights, for example. If you're on the edge of a precipice, I was up on I've been some high buildings like World Trade Center before it got knocked down and all that, and looking over the edge, and you feel it like down there, and that's a natural fear. There's only one tribe up high in the Andes who don't have that. Everyone else in the world has it. But if you're like, some people I've worked with, you putting your foot on the first rung of a step ladder to change a light bulb in the kitchen is filling you full of dread. That's a fear you don't want to have. It doesn't serve you, and is of no benefit whatsoever. And if you've got a big hairy goal, it's a bit scary, but that's an exciting scary. I think that's a good thing. But if it's filling you with dread, you're like, oh my god, whoa. That's not going to move you where you want to be. So fear comes in various shapes and sizes. Some of it can be beneficial and helpful, and some of it unhelpful, and that's the bit we have to get rid of.
Yes, yes. And I think a lot of us, and I know that I've caught myself doing this as well. I mean, luckily, I'm aware of this because I was taught that it isn't a good thing to do. But this thing about rehearsing a negative outcome or catastrophizing is something that it's so easy to slip into, isn't it?
Well, as folks will now be aware, I work very holistically, and I am of a believer that if you focus on what you don't want, you increase the propensity of attracting that into your life.
Yeah.
It's better to focus on what you do want and get more of what you do want in your life. And people say, oh, but the little voice keeps saying this and saying this and saying, and I say, well, it's your head. You're in charge of what goes on in it. So I understand you can't always stop the voice, but what you can do is have a representation of what you do want, what your preferred outcome is, and
Yeah.
swap it. You've got something until that becomes your new normal, and you like me. I'm always thinking positive. If I have a negative thought, it's because of a real life situation, something's happening. But generally speaking, I'm now completely free of any kind of anxiety. I work a lot with anxiety. I know what it's like to be waking up in the morning, and as soon as you become conscious, falling into dread because you don't know what's going to be happening in the day. Well, have an idea of what you want to happen in the day, and put that in your head, and you may find that's more likely to happen than what you didn't want.
Yeah, and really, there is no reason why we shouldn't rehearse in our heads a positive outcome. We shouldn't rehearse everything going right. But how many people actually do that? You know, when you think about it, naturally, people don't tend to do that, do they? And I just wonder why that is.
I do it all the time. I mean, well, why it is because they don't know. People don't know any better. It's not taught in schools. Like
No.
before I came on here tonight, I did a number of techniques, some of which you'll be aware of. I used the Ho'oponopono, the stage technique. So I detached myself from the outcome. I'm not trying to make it go good or bad. I'm trying to be neutral about it, because if you become too attached to an outcome, you can set up a resistance which drives it further away. But I
Yeah.
did also put a goal in my future where I imagined what would happen at the end of it. I'm not telling you now what that is, but you can probably imagine that it was a good thought. So
Yeah.
that it's gone very well and so on. I didn't imagine that you would disappear for most of it, but you know.
Well, as you said, everything happens for a reason. So it was like your energy just got so big that it made my computer pop. And it was like, no, Jane has to go away and let Keith shine, you know, for a little bit.
That's the way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so rehearsing a positive outcome, that's a very, very interesting thing, isn't it? Really. Why should we not rehearse those positive outcomes all the time? Is that a good habit to get into, do you think, Keith?
I think it is. With things like anxiety, I do have a technique which I call best possible outcome, and it's quite simple. What you do is when you go to bed at night, you think about tomorrow and what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe there's an event, or you're going to be somewhere, or whatever's going on, and how do you want it to be? And you get a really good representation of it, looking through your own eyes. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you say to yourself? And most importantly, how does it feel? For that to go perfectly, exactly how you want, bring that feeling to it, and just do it for half a minute, and write on a piece of paper what it is. And you know, it might be meeting with Jim or whatever, and then you've had that representation of it. Just put your head on the pillow and go to sleep. Very last thing, first thing in the morning, before you do anything else, before you empty your bladder or whatever, look at what you wrote last night, meeting with Jim or whatever it is. Go back into that representation. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you say to yourself? And how does it feel? Get the full VAK on it, as they say. Get that kinesthetic. How good does it feel to go exactly how you want it? Hold it for 30 seconds. Go about your day. And you may find it goes exactly how you want it, or at least better than you expected. So really useful technique. I call it best possible outcome, BPO.
Best possible outcome. Okay, so remember that, guys. Best possible outcome. If ever you catch yourself rehearsing a negative outcome, which is obviously a byproduct of stress and burnout and all of the things that we've talked about, you can flip the switch and turn it to a best possible outcome. So that's the message. So you know, Keith, do you think this whole thing about burnout, is it because we've been poorly trained in terms of our thinking and our approach to things, or is it something that is deeper than that?
Well, I'm going to say yes to both. Again, you look at things holistically. There is the physical 3D world, practical stuff which we have to deal with, and you might have a good idea and you might be really good at what you do, and you want to take that out to the world and you go and become entrepreneurial, but do you know how to run a business? Do you know how to manage the finances? Do you know how to get the resources you need to make things happen? And yes, you can train it. Yes, you can use other people's expertise and so on. But many people just launch themselves into it without any idea of what's going to happen, and suddenly all this stuff is piled on them, and it's like, oh my God, I didn't expect this. So there is that physical world reality of it, but then you've got the mental and emotional and energetic stuff. If you're out of alignment with your core being, you will attract problems. If you've got these unconscious beliefs about being unworthy, or if the fear of failure, I tell you what, Fear is a very, very strong emotion, and it's through your thoughts and your emotions that you communicate at the quantum level and create that vibration and that harmonic, which is going to be generating your physical world reality for you. It might sound a bit mumbo jumbo, but when you but it just works when you change that into a feeling of peace and excitement and gratitude. It's great to have an attitude of gratitude, because if you're feeling thankful all the time, you will get more things in your life thankful for. So yes, there's a practical consideration. If you're swamped and don't know what you're doing, or you're getting more stuff than you know what to deal with, that's a problem. But maybe the problem is caused by being out of alignment, or having unconscious self-limiting beliefs, for example.
Yes, and I certainly know for myself, I'm a great believer that the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. I really, really do believe that. And they say surround yourself by people who lift you higher. And people can misinterpret that. They can think, well, that means that I always need to be around kind of super successful people. And people say, if you're the most successful person in the room, you've got to change the room that you're in. And there's lots of sayings like that for entrepreneurs, which are very just success and money orientated and all the rest of it. But genuinely, I believe, we started off talking about this at the beginning of the podcast, that connection and intimacy and the ability to actually speak your truth and to be accepted and seen for who you are, and for you to have the opportunity to do that for others and with others as well. I believe that is one of the most strengthening and protective things of all when it comes to this issue of burnout. Would you agree?
I think it's definitely a contributor. I mean, and as humans, we are social beings, and then embracing the life-affirming factors I talked about earlier, having community and connection is a key one of those. To be sort of withdrawn and shutting yourself off from the world is going to lead to distress. It's going to make you unhappy for sure. And that Harvard study I referred to, they took these young men in the 30s, and there's a TED talk on it, and the current director of the program, it's been going on since the 1930s. There's still about 7 or 8 people still alive who are on the program, and they periodically measure them across all kinds of physical and mental and attitudinal, and also their wealth and that. And obviously some of them became very rich, and there were senators, and others were in poverty and so on at the end of the day. But of all these, from the 750 they started with, across all those decades, what they found was it wasn't the richest people who were the happiest. It was the ones who had the most connection and the most community.
Yeah, which is I mean, look, it doesn't surprise me at all, but I just keep on thinking, and I did mention this on another podcast about this guy Johann Hari, who did all these studies across the world about depression, and he made it his life's work. I don't know if you've read any of his books, but
No.
He
Tell me his name again.
Johann Hari, his name is. So
I'll look it up.
Yeah, he studied addiction and also depression, and so he went around the world interviewing different societies all over the world about their attitudes to addiction and depression. And what he found out about addiction is that basically we as human beings, we're kind of hardwired for addiction because we like things that make us feel good. And so actually, it is normal for us to want to experience a different reality, if you like. So, and we tend to be greedy because we kind of think that things, even, back from the caveman days, that with this gorging thing of like, you never know when the next meal is going to come from. So that, predisposes us to want to drink, for example, or whatever, or to experience a different reality in our mind. So that's what he found out about addiction. But with depression, what he found out was that they started introducing antidepressants to developing countries, and he went to Cambodia, and they just introduced antidepressants to Cambodia, and they said, well, we don't need these. And so he interviewed this doctor. He said, well, what do you mean you don't need these tablets? Now, we have our own antidepressants. He said, well, what do you mean? And so this man talked about this guy who had he'd been in a landmine. He was just a paddy in the paddy fields, working. Obviously it's water. There's water there, and his leg had been blown up by a landmine, so he had like a artificial leg. And apparently, when you expose artificial limbs to water, they can be very painful. So he was going out working with his artificial limb in the paddy fields, and he was very, very sad because he was in pain every day. And in the end, he just went to bed and just cried and wouldn't get up and go to work in the paddy fields. And so what happened is they sent people from the village around to sit with him every single day and to talk to him. And after a while, this guy started to kind of feel a bit happier because people were coming round to talk to him. And in the end, they all clubbed together in the village and they bought him a cow so that he didn't have to go back into the paddy fields. He could have his cow and he could be a dairy farmer instead. Very, very simple story. But the moral of the story is, look, people heal other people. It's connection, isn't it? That's our antidepressant. We don't believe in any of these tablets. It's people. It's actually caring. It's people caring for other people that lift them higher and they get them out of this state, really. So
that's a fantastic story. I really love it. When I lived in Colorado, I used to go to a lot of that was in what I call my awakening phase, and I was going to a lot of these sort of metaphysical type of workshops and things. And there was an holistic bookstore which had a regular talk, and often they would have an elder or wise person from one of the Native American tribes, like Arapahoes were from that area, for example. And the way they talked about how they deal with, I say societal issues. First of all, traditionally they didn't have the same kind of issues that we get in our society. We've created an environment which we're not physiologically suited to, which is why we have all these problems, especially when you're constantly in a state of fear. That's not good for you physically, amongst other things. And it was how they dealt with people who had committed a crime or an offense against somebody. They don't see it as the person's fault. They see it as the community's fault for creating the situation that person felt they had to do that. And it was a really, really interesting way of looking at things, very, very wise and enlightened. On the subject of addiction, I find it really quite interesting is that the way I look at it is that addiction is an unmet need at the level of the unconscious mind. Okay. And the German word for addiction is Sucht, which is the same root as the verb suchen, meaning to seek. So what are you looking for? I mean, in the end, everybody just wants to be loved. And that's what it essentially comes down to. And when you have that kind of community that you were talking about, that what they're doing, buying that chap a cow, they're not doing it out of any economic or other kind of motivation. It's just love for their fellow human being. Yeah. And if we all had more of that, how would the world look?
Yeah, I know. It was such a moving story, because inevitably, he would be in this environment where probably nobody's got any money, but every little penny that they put towards this cow was a penny that they could have spent on themselves. And so that was what made it really, really moving and powerful.
Yeah. In our society in more recent centuries has been more sort of individualistic and less community centered, and I think that's maybe to our detriment in some ways.
Yes. Okay, well, Keith, we've had such an amazing conversation tonight. So I know
Well,
we
I've had an amazing conversation, Jane.
Yeah, I know. I know that we had a bit of a solo break in the middle, which was kind of quite fun. But
Yes.
anyway, I'm glad that I managed to come back in and we managed to finish our conversation, because I really hope that anybody who has been struggling a little bit with feelings of entrepreneurial burnout, which is that it's very, very common after that initial flush of enthusiasm and all that that kind of excitement of getting a business started. If you are in that kind of phase where you're feeling a bit low on energy and you're in that kind of slump, Keith is somebody who can help you. So thank you so much, Keith, for coming on tonight and talking about such an important topic.
You're very, very welcome, and I've absolutely loved it. I just noticed one thing. Where it's got my name in the bottom of my window, it just says Keith, and I have said to people, connect on LinkedIn if you want to. So they need to know my last name is Corbett, Keith Corbett, and I'm ready, waiting, and willing if you want to connect, but no pressure or obligation, obviously.
Okay, so Keith Corbett, and connect with him on LinkedIn. Thank you so much again, Keith, and speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.